Good evening, esteemed and honorable members of council. Chief of Staff Simmons, Deputy Chief of Staff for the Mayor's Office, Stephanie Mergler, department heads, Office of Management and Budget, his director, and members of the public. Today is Monday, April the 28th, and I would like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting. This evening, there are two budget hearings scheduled. One, the Human Resources Department, then followed by the Law Department. I would like to start by recognizing members of the Finance Committee that are in attendance this evening by doing a roll call. Councilmember Darby, Councilmember Hackett,
Here.
Councilmember Oliver, Councilmember Bracy,
Present.
Councilmember Spadola, President Congo.
Here.
I would also like to recognize any other council members present. Councilmember Owens,
Present.
Councilmember Cabrera, Councilmember Willard, Councilmember Johnson, Councilmember Field, Councilmember McCoy. Thank you, council members that are joining tonight. Mayor Carney presented a proposed budget to council on March 20th. The budget as proposed includes the following: a 0 property tax rate increase, a 6.5 water sewer rate increase, along with a 6% stormwater rate increase, a $2.5 million transfer from the Tax Stabilization Fund to the Neighborhood Stabilization Fund, $500,000 for the Wilmington Neighborhood Conservancy Land Bank, and $2 million for the home repair program, and $0 used from the fund balance. The proposed general fund budget total is $201 million, up $7.6 million. The proposed water sewer fund budget total is $95 million, up $5.2 million. And the proposed capital budget is $199 million. The proposed general fund budget, as presented, has a budgeted surplus of $2.8 million and factors three main items that will warrant much discussion during these proceedings. First, are $4 million for the EMS ambulance service, which will add 30 new EMS positions, 1 new civilian position, and other relevant costs. I would like to add that a budget amendment to the fiscal year 2025 budget for EMS ambulance service was adopted by the council on April 17th. Property tax reassessment. This is a result of a court mandate that's within the purview of the Newcastle County government, who authorized Tyler Technologies to perform a property tax reassessment based on market rate value, which is revenue neutral. This may cause an increase in some residential customers' property taxes, and there may be a shift with more commercial properties paying lower property taxes, unfortunately. I look forward to working with the mayor and my colleagues to learn more on the plans for how the mayor intends to establish a fund or to offer some financial assistance. And then lastly, the water sewer rates. While the FY2026 proposed water rates submitted to council from the mayor are lower than the recommendations by the Utility Citizens Advisory Board, this council must review these proposed rates as well as understanding the impact of other rising costs such as Delmarva bills, property taxes due to the reassessment, and likewise water sewer rates. The mayor has shared his vision for the intended planned use of the FY26 proposed budgetary funds. Now it is council's fiduciary responsibility to review the budget, have budget hearings with the various departments to get a complete plan on the intended use of these budgetary funds, and then to have negotiations with the administration on any changes that may be warranted to this proposed budget. By charter, council must adopt a balanced budget, and it shall be the duty of the council at least 30 days before the end of the fiscal year to adopt the annual operating ordinance for the next fiscal year. Council has also shared its priorities with the mayor, which are inclusive of, I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Oliver. One, public safety, a police accountability review board, a recruitment and retention officer for the Wilmington Fire Department and Partners in Care. Neighborhood stabilization. This is funding for the home repair program and affordable housing revitalization program and property tax reassessment inequities. Community beautification, citywide beautification for all 8 districts, and the Juneteenth celebration. Education, HBCU funding specifically for the City of Wilmington residents only, and the Office of Educational Advocacy. Economic development, continued dedicated funding for small minority business program. Financial stability, we want to continue the water utility assistance program. And then lastly, we want to continue renovating and repairing our parks, offering capital support for the various parks throughout all 8 districts. Also, ensuring that council's legislative mandates are adequately funded. Before I turn it over to Mr. Jones, OMB Fiscal and Operational Analyst, I would like to inform everyone that public comments will be made at the end of each department's budget hearing and that we look forward to having participation from the public. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. If there is any follow-up information during any of the budget hearings, Ms. Bassnight will track and follow up on those requests. The budget hearings are limited due to time constraints. I kindly ask if all can be mindful and respectful of time. All budget questions should be of a fiscal budgetary matter only and will be limited based upon time limitations. I ask if my colleagues have any questions, please raise your hand. It is intended for each department to present, then questions will be slated afterwards. I now turn it over to Mr. Jones, OMB Fiscal and Operational Analyst, to provide a financial overview of the Human Resources Department, then followed by Director Barnes, as well as for a question and answer session with council. This hearing is tentatively slated for 90 minutes. Mr. Jones.
All right, thank you. Could I have the slide loaded, please? All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, Council President, Council Chief of Staff, and honorable members of City Council. This evening, I will present the Human Resources Department FY2026 proposed budget on behalf of the Office of Management and Budget. Next slide. Funding for the department is derived from the general fund and the 3 self-insurance funds: risk management, workers' compensation, and health and welfare. The department is requesting a total budget of $38.8 million. Of that amount, $3.7 million is allocated towards personal services, about $7 million is allocated towards materials, supplies, and equipment, or MS&E, and $28.1 million is allocated towards the self-insurance account groups, which includes the city's healthcare costs. Next slide. The HR department is requesting a general fund budget of $2.7 million, representing an increase of $68,300 over the FY 2025 budget. Personal services remain relatively flat, decreasing by $1,550. At the same time, MS&E increased by a net total of almost $70,000 relative to FY 2025. Next slide. Okay, in personal services, several changes were implemented during the FY 2025 mid-year realignment as part of revisions to the compensation and classification study, impacting the general fund at a total cost of $17,344. These changes included salary upgrades and title changes as listed in the sub-bullets on the screen. Below, we have temporary salaries, which increased by a net $10,200 for an intern and a temporary assistant to support with various projects, field department vacancies, and assist in migrating HR files to alternative storage methods. Next slide. Now on to MS&E, which I mentioned in one of the previous slides, increased by a net total of almost $70,000. This is primarily due to a $50,000 allocation to support the new employment and recruitment residency assistant fund as recommended by the City Council Residency Task Force. This fund will provide sign-in bonuses and assist new employees with down payments, security deposits, and relocation expenses. Workshops, seminar training increased by a net $21,900 due to the consolidation of workforce training and performance management into the Cornerstone Performance Management and Learning software. This investment aims to enhance accountability, upskill the workforce, and address ongoing skill gaps for an efficient city government. $5,000 was allocated to the consultants account line to support the implementation of the Learning and Development Program. Miscellaneous charges, NOC, decreased by $25,000 as funding for the outsourcing the payroll was eliminated due to the project being suspended while the department explores other options. Lastly, in the general fund, we have legal fees, which increased by almost $12,600 for arbitrator fees and expenses for ongoing cases. Next slide. Moving on to the self-insurance funds. The Risk Management Fund requested a total proposed budget of $5.7 million. This represents an increase of approximately $483,000, or 9.3%. Next slide. Personal services increased by about $173,000, primarily due to the restoration of a full-time risk manager, now up 1 FTE in the Risk Management Fund. For the past 13 years, a part-time retired employee has handled the duties of the risk manager. The department reinstated the full-time position to support succession planning as the part-time manager transitioned out. The total cost of this position, including salary and benefits, is $163,657. MS&E increased by a net $309,700, with $420,000 allocated to insurance claims for general liability, auto, and property insurance. This was offset by a $320,000 reduction in insurance claims legal defense based on recommendations from the city's law department, which revised the estimates for the use of outside counsel as more complex cases have been resolved. In addition, the net increase included the rise in liability costs for general liability and cyber insurance premiums, up $184,000. Next slide. Next, we have the Workers' Compensation Fund, which decreased by 2.6%, or $154,000, with MS&E contributing a large portion of the decrease, down 13.2%, or $135,000, down from the FY2025 budget. In personal services, as part of the FY2025 mid-year realignment, the risk management analyst position was upgraded, reflecting a $8,200 cost to the Workers' Compensation Fund. Next slide. Some of the two main contributors to the net $135,000 decrease in MS&E were the liability account, which decreased by $150,000 to align with prior year expenditure trends, and self-insurance costs, which decreased by an approximate net of $62,000 based on the actuarial study by USI, the city's healthcare insurance consultant. Next slide. Lastly, we have the Health and Welfare Fund, which requested a proposed budget of $24.5 million, an increase of roughly $1.8 million. In personal services, the title of Employee Benefits Operations Administrator was changed to Employees Benefits Analyst with no salary change. Next slide. Self-insurance costs increased by a net $1.76 million following the latest review of claims expenses. This rise was primarily driven by an 8.7% increase in medical costs and an 11.4% increase in prescription costs. Medical costs rose by $1.3 million as utilization continues to normalize to pre-COVID levels, while prescription costs increased by $415,000 based on projections from USI. That concludes my presentation of the Human Resources Department FY2026 proposed budget. I return the floor back to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. I would like to turn it over to Director Barnes at this time.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Congo, Chairman Harley, honorable members of council assembled here this afternoon, those who may be participating virtually, and council staff. Thank you for the opportunity to present the fiscal year 26 proposed budget for the Department of Human Resources for your consideration. It is indeed my privilege and honor to serve the city as the Director of Human Resources. I work diligently to lead the department as we carry out our mission to provide the necessary human resources to city departments in order to promote the highest quality workforce and productive work environment to maintain the city's operational and fiscal stability through effective risk management. Among Mayor John Carney's priorities is addressing recruitment, hiring, and retention challenges for city employees to ensure that government is fully staffed and able to serve the community effectively. To do so, we must identify and address the perceived or real barriers to attracting and retaining a qualified workforce. Today's employees prioritize fair compensation, mental health support, work-life balance, career development opportunities, and a workplace that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. They desire workplaces that prioritize equity and expect fair pay and benefits. They want support for mental well-being, including resources and cultures that value mental health. They want opportunities for growth, learning, and skill development so they can progress in their careers. And they want inclusive environments where everyone feels heard, valued, and respected. We have sought to address fair compensation through the recent classification and compensation study and the resulting expanded salary ranges, which provide greater earning potential for our current and future workforce. We have expanded health coverage and support for managing mental health and worked with the FOP for a traumatic event leave policy. In addition to expanding training and professional development opportunities for the workforce, before fiscal year end, we will begin the implementation of our new performance management and learning and development initiative. An area where we acknowledge more work can be done is in the area of prioritizing the cultivation of a workplace culture that promotes diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Employee satisfaction and engagement is high when employees thrive in environments that promote DEI and B. You will see listed as one of our priorities for fiscal 26. Before calendar year end, we intend to assess the workplace culture and practices to develop and implement a data-driven strategy to eliminate barriers to an inclusive work environment. Before delving into the presentation and questions, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the hardworking professionals in the department's management team. They are Deputy Director Taylor West, who is seated to my left, Comfort Dixon, the Director of Employment Services, who is seated in the gallery, Stephen Dexter, Director of Classification and Compensation, Janesta Ray, who is the Acting Director of Employee Benefits, and she's not here with us today, Bruno Battaglia, Occupational Health and Safety Program Manager, who is not here with us today, but in his stead is Tracy Kwan, and James Robb, our Risk Manager, who is not here with us today. I owe a debt of gratitude to the entire HR team, some of whom are present in the gallery, as I just mentioned, and others who have joined virtually. They work every day to meet the needs of the city's workforce. With your permission, I would like to begin responding to council's written questions.
Yes, please proceed.
So you see the mission statement listed here. That was one of the questions, and I also mentioned in my opening statement. So next slide, please. You asked us to list 3 priorities, and you just heard me go through one of the 3 priorities, but I will restate it here. We intend to assess the workplace culture and practices to develop and implement a data-driven strategy to eliminate barriers to an inclusive environment where all employees can thrive. You also heard that we will implement a new learning and performance management system to support a culture of performance management and professional development. And we will implement the city's plan to ensure compliance with the Healthy Delaware Families Act. So there are key performance indicators on the next slide that align with the priorities that were just mentioned. We intend to finalize and begin the DEI strategy by January 1, 2026. We are looking for a workforce adoption rate of the new learning and performance management system. We're looking for an adoption rate of 80%. And then we want to host a minimum of 5 informational sessions to ensure that our workforce is educated on the city's paid leave program, and we will negotiate the terms and conditions of the plan with any of our collective bargaining units as deemed appropriate.
Okay. All right. So that concludes your KPIs, correct?
Correct. We have more that will guide our work, but those
Yes.
were the ones that were listed there, yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for the mission and sharing your overview and all of those KPIs. So we're going to jump into our questions.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to just go right to question number 1. So with the evolving changes regarding federal grant funding and the dynamics of the city's workforce, can you please share any human resource policies and or practices that focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion?
And so Chairwoman Harley,
Yes.
I'll be taking this question.
Okay.
And so as Director Barnes alluded to in her opening remarks, diversity isn't just about, the composition of our workforce. It's a value that should be reflected in our strategies, our policies, our practices, to ensure that all employees feel valued, respected, and have equal opportunities here at the City of Wilmington. And so I am pleased to work for an employer that, in light of everything that is going on in the federal level, we are still very much prioritizing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. As it relates to the policies that directly address that, they're listed here before you, the one being the Equal Employment Opportunity Policy that goes into, our hiring process, practices and processes, as well as how different protected class interact with the City of Wilmington as an employer. We also have a harassment-free work environment policy that protects the treatment of those members of those protected classes. You heard Director Barnes mention that we are creating a targeted strategy around it, but we have already begun some of that work. And so you see here that the questions have been adjusted for this most recent fire academy that we are just completed to make sure that there is a focus on diversity, equity, inclusion. And we will be mirroring that in all of our interviews, primarily for manager and supervisor positions. As well as our pay and hiring practices generally focus on diversity and equity, regardless, again, of a person's protected class.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move right into question number 2, if you're finished.
Yes.
Okay. So recently, the city commenced 2 changes regarding the city's workforce. One, a citywide compensation study to bring employees' salary within comparable means of other similar government positions, and also the realignment of certain positions. Can you please share if these changes have aided in the retention and recruitment of efforts? I'm going to ask that you just sort of like speak to around the impact of the ordinance 24-051, and then you can just answer A, 1 through 4, and then B under number 2. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll take this question.
Okay.
So the impact of ordinance 24051 was that it paused the biennial appeals process to allow for a more robust interactive process to review position classifications. And then it also ensured that the Department of Human Resources has up-to-date job descriptions for each of the civilian jobs within the city of Wilmington. There were 23 positions that were reclassified with salary increases totaling $182,000 for 47 employees. Okay. Our efforts in this area enhances our competitiveness within the job market. It expanded our market-driven salary ranges and provides higher earning potential for our employees. And we believe that these efforts positively affect recruitment and retention efforts. Next slide, please.
Okay, what number are we on?
We are on 2A.
2A.
And we're on 2A.
Okay.
So it's asking that we list all positions that receive the position realignment per department, per employee classification, amount per position, and a determining factor. So as you can see in the slide, I attempted to just be able to click a link, but I've been informed by WITN that I can't do that. So I do have the list here for all council members.
Okay.
What I can do is speak to you about the overall impact I just shared with you, that it was $182,000
Okay.
across 47 positions, and I can provide a summary of the positions and the departments, but this is the detail here in this slide.
Okay.
The question further asked what factors were determinative in who would get reclassified. And our reclassification efforts are always based on very discrete factors. Has there been a change in the scope of your responsibilities? Has there been a change in the required knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform your function? Has there been a change in the consequence of any mistakes that you may make in the course of you carrying out your responsibilities? Has the financial impact or oversight of your role been expanded in any way? And then the basis for your interaction with any of our public or city officials, are they for the purpose of just exchanging information? Are you influencing decision-making? What is the nature and purpose of those interactions? So those 5 factors key into whether or not a position is reclassified. If there have been changes, we take it through a tool. That tool will measure where you should be on in our classification structure. So that's the basis for the factors that go into whether or not a position is reclassified.
Okay.
It should be noted that only 27 of the 300 positions on the civilian side required reclassification.
Okay.
And that's primarily because most of our job descriptions were up to date. Before we post any position, we go ahead and we ask the department, we work with the department to make sure that the job description is current for the needs of the organization.
Okay.
We also did some of that work prior to doing the classification and compensation study that we undertook probably almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
So many of our job descriptions were up to date. And so it only resulted in 27 of the 300 positions needing reclassification.
That's good.
We also, I want to talk about the process that we undertook. We met with departmental leadership on the front end to ask them were there any changes in their organization, and could they work with us for them to tell us what jobs job descriptions needed to be updated. They updated the job descriptions accordingly, and then we reviewed them. We then met with various employee groups as well as the union to verify the accuracy and for the employees to confirm and acknowledge that this is the work that I actually do. And then based on that, our team in our department, the classification and compensation division, reviewed the JDs, took them through the new tool, and then the determination was made as to whether or not positions needed to be upgraded or not.
Very thorough.
Continuing is asking Sheriff a panel of HR experts or a firm was engaged in the process with realignments and specify if internal or external inclusive of admin board. And so as I just indicated, the positions were reviewed utilizing the tool that Peter Johnson, the consultant that did our classification and compensation study, we were left with a tool to ongoing basis to manage and maintain our classification structure. So we took that tool, took the JDs and ran them through the tool.
Great.
Okay, and then specify who in HR reviewed any HR alignments. This year, you will note that in prior years, when we had the biennial appeal process, we would have external parties review any applications of HR employees. There were no applications this year because we did it based on the job descriptions. So we allowed the classification and compensation director as the subject matter expert to utilize the tool that was given to do the assessments.
That's great.
Okay. And the process for HR is the same process that mirror the process for all other departments.
Okay. And we'll move right to B, under 2B.
2B.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure. Oh, okay. Charity efforts to recruit federal workers to the city's workforce in light of the Department of Governmental Efficiency's evolving changes. So we'll say that there have been no specific efforts in this regard. We are aware of efforts of surrounding states and including our own that are specifically targeting and recruiting federal workers. And while we have not have any targeted efforts at this point, we have noticed an uptick in the number of federal workers who are applying for our positions. And in fact, we recently hired one who will begin with the city on May 19th.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move right into, thank you for all that information. And I'm glad to hear that tool sounds like it's working. So we're going to go to number 3. So the latest vacancy report provided to City Council has 101 vacant positions, while at the same time last year, there were 122 vacant positions, and the prior year, 97 vacant positions. Can you please share the processes in place for operational efficiency for filling vacant positions so there's minimal impact on the city's fiscal operations? And you can just answer letters A through C.
Okay, and I'll take this question.
Okay?
And I want to preface it by saying I think it's important to note that the number of vacancies alone, that information alone doesn't adequately portray the work of the Department of Human Resources to fill our roles. And so the positions that are on the current vacancy report are not necessarily all the same positions that were on the previous reports referenced here in council's question. And so, we do have a policy to promote within, and that is the case that a lot of our vacancies are largely filled by internal promotions. And so that naturally results in another vacancy being created. And so wanted to provide that context and then go ahead and speak to what we're currently doing. And so the process for filling vacancies, as you see here, is largely defined by our city code. And so we honor that code, and we are actively, we are actively prioritizing collecting data. And so before we begin the work to improve our operations and optimize our processes, we want to really know where we need to do that work. And so we are prioritizing data collection to strategically shape our efforts to continue to improve our processes. And so some of that we have already begun. And so, for example, our requisition process, the process that has to be done to initiate the hiring process. We have recently automated that and will be implementing in May a similar process for our terminations. And so when these things timely happen, for example, terminations timely happen, when people exit the organization, we're able to initiate filling the vacancy quicker. And so we are actively working again to identify areas where we can optimize our processes as it relates to hiring and other functions that the department is responsible for.
So we'll move to A. So you just went over,
Yes, that was the first part, and I'm just waiting. The next slide. You can go to the next slide.
okay.
Okay. And so this question is whether the city residency requirement continues to impact filling vacant positions. And so I think, again, it's important to note here that we will never be able to fully quantify the impact of residency because we can never know the candidates that may never apply because of their awareness of our residency requirement. And therefore, I think it's reasonable to infer that there will always be an impact and a benefit to eliminating barriers to candidates seeking employment with the city of Wilmington. And so we do continue to see impact of our residency requirement, which only applies currently to non-union positions, just to list a few examples. And so we're seeing the impact both people withdrawing from the process at some point after they submit their application. And so even though the job description says that residency is a requirement for those non-union positions, they're still applying, and at some point in the process withdraw. And then we also are still seeing examples of where people proceed through the entire process, interview, are then extended an offer and decline the offer because of our residency requirement. You can go to the next slide. Okay. This question asks us to specify if the PERB decision dated April 11th, 2024, regarding the FOP Lodge 1 pertaining to an unfair labor practice has been beneficial with filling vacant positions. And so again, removing any barrier to attracting and retaining qualified candidates is beneficial. It creates a wider applicant pool, but we really wanted to highlight on this slide who's really impacted here. And so 76% of the city's positions are unionized. They're a part of the union. And so the majority of our workforce is not subject to a residency requirement. Of our current employees, of our current 978 employees, only 22 of them are subjected to a residency requirement right now.
Okay. All right.
We can go to the next slide. So for 3C, this just asks for the number of city positions per classification. And I think here the data kind of speaks for itself.
Okay.
We can go to the next slide.
I'll take question number 4.
Okay, yes. So, well, thank you. I was trying to figure out if we went over both of these charts. I guess we did. What was the one? The share the number of city positions. That's the one we just went over. Okay, we're ready to move on to number 4. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, so can you please discuss the city's collective bargaining agreement? And you can just respond to A and B directly.
Certainly. So we have 6 unions within city government, and they comprise, as Deputy Director West just indicated, 76% of our workforce. So we have our International Association of Firefighters, which is Local 1590, that covers our firefighters and officers. We have the FOP Lodge 1. One is the captains and majors, and then the other bargaining unit is for the rank and file police officers. We have 3 AFSCME locals. They are local 320, which is our labor, trades, and craftsmen. We have local 1102, which is our clerical, technical, and supervisory union. And then we have our local 1102B, which is our part-time school crossing guards. You'll see the contract terms noted on the slide before you. Every one of our unions are currently under contract. The most pressing need before us is the Local 1590's contract, which expires June 30th of 2025. We are currently in active negotiations with the fire union and have been so for the past several months. But every other contract does not expire until June 30th of next year. The other question is asking, is there any potential budget impact for any expired or tentative contracts? We have no expired contracts. We are currently negotiating with the fire department, but any budgetary impact from previously negotiated contracts are already included in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to question number 5, I would like to recognize Councilmember Field. Okay, can you please discuss any fiscal impact that may be a result of HB 128, which is an act to amend Title 19 of Delaware Code relating to the Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program?
Okay, so as it relates to the fiscal impact of the Healthy Delaware Families Act, the City of Wilmington does fully fund all of its positions on the position allocation list. And so at this time, the fiscal impact is limited to additional overtime, temporary staffing costs that will be needed due to the operational impact of employees being out on extended leaves, and any small or otherwise reduction of savings that would be realized when employees do go out on extended unpaid leave.
Okay, we're going to move right on to question number 6 regarding all funds. Can you please discuss any current vacant positions? And you can answer A through B and 161.
Okay, so listed before you are the vacant positions currently in the Department of Human Resources. One that for the human resource administrator position, I'm sorry. Okay, it's not up there. Okay, excuse me. So for the 3 of the 4 positions, we are actively certifying, with one scheduled, the remaining of the 4 is scheduled to actually begin in May. So the human resource specialist in employment services has that, an offer has been extended and accepted, and that employee is scheduled to begin in May. And then we are tentatively hoping to fill the remaining positions again in June. So the remaining positions have been posted, taken down, are now being certified to review those who met the requisite qualifications, and then we'll proceed to interviews.
Okay. So we covered A, B, and C. What about 161?
And so that's the next slide for C. Okay. And so these are any of the proposed changes to HR positions. And so again, before you on this chart are all of the positions that were impacted in the review that was done by the director, the Division of Classification and Compensation. And so some, as you see, are title changes. Some have been reclassified. And again, the risk manager position is one that was previously a full-time position, but has been filled by a part-time employee that, as the director stated, in the effort to advance succession planning, we are creating, again, a full-time risk manager position.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So we're going to move right on into question number 7 under general fund. Can you please share if any funds are set aside in this proposed budget for the residency assistance fund that was passed by City Council on November 2023 on ordinance number 23-040, and you can answer A and B.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take that question. So this budget does include $50,000 that has been set aside for the residency assistance fund. There has been no usage in the current year because funds will not be available until the budget is adopted and this is included in the budget. The recommendations of the residency task force will guide how we expend those resources. The Department of HR is to promulgate rules and regulations for that. There were some suggestions that were included in the task force report in terms of providing relocation assistance. And that relocation assistance was to be for after employees have completed 6 months of service. If they had relocated, they could be eligible for reimbursement of moving expenses and things of that nature. And there was some targets. If they relocated from within a 25-mile radius, perhaps they can receive up to $5,000 in assistance. And if they had relocated from a distance greater than 25 miles, they could receive up to $7,500. One of the requirements that was recommended was that the employee must maintain employment for 3 years, and that the benefit be restricted to non-union employees only because they are the only ones that are subjected to the residency requirement. And I would just like to state that on average, we hire about 10 employees from out of state every year. So.
Okay.
And the question was, how would we market the program? We will include on every non-union job, assuming this is included and passes, we will include on every non-union job description language about the availability of relocation assistance, and make that information available in our offer letters when we extend offer letters to employees who live outside of the boundaries. We will provide that information as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We're going to move right on to question number 8. Can you please discuss the planned use of $173,000 budgeted in workshops and seminar training? You can answer letters A and 1 and 2 under 8.
Okay. And so of the 173,000 budgeted in workshops, seminars, and training, 167,000 of that will cover the cost of our new performance management and learning and development platforms. And so they are two separate platforms, but on one, two separate functions, but one platform. And the remainder of that budget line will be used to develop content that could be uploaded to the platform or to cover the expenses of ad hoc training, workshops, and seminars for the workforce. And so one of the benefits, again, as Director Barnes spoke about in her opening remarks, is consolidation. And that creates improved user experience for our employees, and also has one place where we can identify skills gaps, provide real-time and frequent coaching and feedback, and connect them to learning that based on those skill gaps, to improve their performance and also develop leaders. And so we see that listed here, just a few of the benefits of performance management and learning and development. Our learning and development platform allows us to mobilize training, and so anyone who has a smartphone, regardless of whether if you work in an office cubicle or on the streets of our city, you will have access to training that's personalized based on your needs. It will help us in our efforts to advance substantive onboarding plans, and so we can create learning plans when people enter the organization, and again, monitor the progress on that. And so there are a myriad of benefits to both the learning and development and performance management systems. The fact that it's one platform is just an added bonus to the city, to our employees.
So we covered.
And then in the next subpart, council requested data from previous training or training that has been provided in the previous and current fiscal year. And so specifically asking to specify if any of the training is citywide for managers and supervisors. And so before you, you see a few different categories of learning or training. So local GovU, which you all are likely familiar with, that was the online platform that we previously used to offer on-demand training to our employees, either in the furtherance of professional development or training that's responsive to any challenges that were identified. And then the Wilmington cohort, and so that's a supervisor and manager cohort program offered by the Wilmington University. LearnSoft was also a program that we used in the last 2 fiscal years that offered not both on-demand training and live virtual training that allowed employees to exchange tickets for respective courses that were part of the catalog offered by LearnSoft. And so as it relates to our managers and supervisors, we have been intentional around the development there, offering more comprehensive and in-person learning where employees get to proceed through as a cohort. And so not only are they getting the information, but they're getting the benefit of camaraderie and feedback from other leaders within the organization. In addition, you'll see a new training offered this current fiscal year is called SHRM PMQ. SHRM is the Society for Human Resources Management, a renowned organization globally and a leader in human resources. And so they offer a people manager certification. And so we have strategically identified members of the organization spanning departments to participate in our first cohort of our SHRM PMQ that is underway now. We began meeting 2 weeks ago, and we're really looking forward to seeing the impact of this training. It's something that our leaders have not had before, and so again, while we do have an opportunity, a policy to promote for within, now we need to be equipping our leaders to actually lead when they're given those opportunities. And so that's a huge focus and will continue to be of our training efforts.
Great. Sounds like cutting edge. All right, we're going to move right on to question number 9. Can you please discuss the plan used for $90,000 in professional fees? And you can answer A and B.
Okay, and so these $90,000 in professional fees, $24,000 will go to a Division of Employment Services, and so for background investigations that we may have to conduct, and then our temporary staffing through our temp agency. The compliance line that goes to fees that we have to pay for our labor arbitrations. And so there has been a slight increase there just due to the increase in the actual fees charged by the Arbitration Association and the number of arbitrations that we are seeing. So we just typically average it based on what the previous years have shown when we're estimating what we will likely expend in the upcoming fiscal year. And then this year, the Division of Classification and Compensation will be conducting an FLSA audit. And that vendor is a woman-owned and operated. And so the question was if there are any DBEs. And yes, there is a DBE. The vendor that's performing the FLSA audit is one. And there are, as it relates to the 9B, we have entered into a one-year agreement with Integrity Staffing since 2022. However, an RFP is set to be published in the fall for that agreement, or for that.
Okay. All right, we're going to move right into the Risk Management Fund under question number 10. Can you please discuss the $5 million in insurance account grouping, which is up $286,000 over the prior year's budget? And you can answer letters A through D.
Okay. So, the question speaks to the approximately $5 million that are, that's budgeted in our self-insurance account group, or in our insurance account group, I'm sorry. And you'll see listed there, these are for our coverages and for costs associated with the same. Our fire coverage, our liability coverage, which is our excess liability, insurance, and the insurance claims is general liability, property, and auto. Under legal defense, that's where we pay claims to resolve matters, where we have settlements that we need to pay. The motor vehicle is when we have damage to city vehicles. We are self-insured, but there is a set aside for when there are damage to city vehicles that run in excess of some of our expenses and our coverages. The risk control deals with cybersecurity and insurance, crime insurance. And then there is a claim, a longstanding claim for the claimant that's listed there. That total amounts to $5 million.
Okay. All right. We're going to move right on to question number 11.
Actually, 10A, I'm
want-
sorry,
I
next
was-
slide.
okay.
Next slide, 10A.
A, okay.
So the question is, any savings realized from the general liability general liability policy, considering the policy change that we made several years back. And so I want to say it's probably since 2013, so probably at least 10 years now, I want to say, the city has purchased excess liability coverage. And this coverage protects against catastrophic loss and prevents the city from having to have high reserves to cover any excess liability claims. And since 2015, we have paid claims from that fund. It is, we pay $1.3 million for a law enforcement claim and $100,000 for a vehicle damage claim. Notably, this coverage only kicks in after we've spent $750,000. So this is our excess liability coverage. As I mentioned earlier, we are self-insured, but to protect us against having to pay, significantly higher claims, we have secured insurance for that.
Okay. Let's see.
And then I want to say the next slide. Okay, they wanted to know the number of claims and the per claimant type for fiscal 24 and then year-to-date fiscal 25. So you can see there, the leader in both years has been auto accidents. We had some civil rights cases that resolved in fiscal 24 and some employment discrimination cases that resolved in fiscal 24 as well.
Okay.
And then I want to say 10C. Wanted to know if there were any funds allocated for EMS services, and we mirrored what we put in last year's budget. If you'll recall, this time last year, we were undergoing the same thing. We were going to take in the EMS services, but then the administration pivoted and was able to get a contract. Well, we kept those same costs and assumed those same made those same assumptions. So we have $700 in reserves in the risk management fund, and $101,000 is the estimate for claims associated with managing EMS services.
Okay.
And then D, it's asking us to specify available fund balance in the reserves. Oh, I think we did that. So
Okay.
okay.
All right. All right. Now we can move to question number 11.
Okay.
All right.
So question 11
Is
asks us
discuss
to,
the-
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Can you please discuss the plan used for $253,000 in consultants, and then you can answer A and B.
Okay, I think this slide probably captures the entirety of the question.
Okay.
Of the 253,000, we use PMA as our third-party administrator of our claims. They are not a DBE, and we do not have a recurring contract with them. In fact, that contract may be coming before council because we have been engaged in a 3-year contract with some optional renewals.
Okay.
Okay, USI is our broker. They are certainly under contract as well. It is not a recurring contract. PMA also does our the third party administrator for our excess claims, and then our actuary. We do have a 1 year recurring agreement with them. We used to be with one actuary, switched to a new one last year because the other one, I guess, we're no longer going to provide the service. And so when we switched to them, we had a 1 year contract. We're doing another year contract to see how we like them, and then we will engage to see if we want to do a multi-year contract with them. But that's the $253,000 in consultants, and none of them are DBEs.
Okay. All right. So we are going to move into workers' compensation. Okay. So 12 is straightforward. Can you
Okay.
discuss the $4.3 million budgeted for self-insurance costs?
Sure. So with workers' compensation, you have a couple of different costs that are directly associated with that. Are there going to be some vocational rehab costs associated with any injured employees? Will we need to pay indemnity payments for them while they're out on workers' comp? And then are there medical costs associated with them being on workers' comp? And then if we have any I'll say lawsuits for workers' comp, we have money budgeted for that as well. So you'll see that those are the four categories of self-insurance costs for workers' comp. It totals, almost $4.3 million. Notably, our costs that are budgeted in this area are driven by the actuary. So the actuary determines our previous claims, our future claims, and they give us the amount that should be budgeted in this area. I should have noted in the previous slide that all of the costs that you see budgeted there are based on the premium costs that we have gotten the quotes for. So it's straightforward. This is what our broker, this is the price that we were able to get for the coverage, and that's what's budgeted there.
Okay. All right. We're going to move right to question number 13. Please discuss the planned use of $367,000 budgeted for insurance while realizing costs has not exceeded $278,000 within the last 3 years. Specify if any funds in the reserves for any catastrophic events.
Okay, so I'll take the second part first and then go to the
Okay.
to what's listed there. So each year, I guess you may or may not remember the Canby Park fire.
Okay.
And after the Canby Park fire, it was a change in administration because the fire occurred in, I think, September of 2016. There was a lot of conversation about why we did not have excess liability coverage for workers' comp. And so we went out to market to see whether it made sense for us to have excess liability coverage. We estimated an amount that the premium would cost us. The decision was made even after all of the numbers were run that said, if you look at the history of our claims, we made out better without having insurance. The decision was made to purchase excess liability coverage for workers' comp. We estimated that coverage was going to cost us $400,000, in a premium cost. It actually wound up costing us closer to $250,000. And what we intended to do every year was to put that extra $150,000 in a reserve fund so that we can build up the reserves in that fund should we have another catastrophic event. Well, the auditors have come forward to tell us that we cannot do that. So you see that it says that the planned use has not exceeded 275. That's because we have not been able to we were going to put that 150 in the fund. The auditors said we cannot. So you'll see in this budget that we did not budget the $150,000. All we did was we didn't budget $400,000. All we budgeted was the $250,000, which is the cost of the premium. Okay, and then the surety bonds, we're self-insured for workers' comp, and there's a fee that we have to pay for that. That's the $18,000. And then there's the estimated unemployment payments. We're self-insured for unemployment as well. And so that tracks and runs if we have, people that apply for and are able to get unemployment. It doesn't mean that we laid them off because they go back several quarters to determine who has to pay the unemployment insurance. So it doesn't mean that we laid individuals off. They could have worked for us previously and their current employer laid them off. And when you go back the quarters, we would be responsible for it. So those are that's where that money is budgeted there.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to move right into question number 14.
Okay.
Can you please share the planned use of $456,000 budgeted in professional fees account grouping? And you can answer letters A through C.
And I think we put all that in one chart to try to make it easier. So you'll see that the $456,000 covers a number of different things. It covers the third-party administrator for the administration of our workers' comp claims. It covers the pre-employment and random drug screenings. It covers the fitness for duty exams, the DME evaluations, and the increased hiring for our summer youth employees. It also covers we have an agreement with PMA to assist us with safety initiatives, and then there's the integrity staffing, which helps us during peak periods. What's listed on the chart is the duration of each of the agreements that we've had and whether they are DBEs or not. And so we have multi-year agreements with PMA, with Dr. Jackie Jo Lindo. We, for Concentra and Innovative Healthcare Solutions, we try to place contracts with each of those providers to keep both of them honest in terms of the cost that they charge us. Also in that industry, there's some compression in terms of, different vendors are consolidating their businesses. So we try to keep two different vendors on hand for our needs, and we do 1 year recurring agreements with them because they change from year to year. We do have 1 year recurring agreements with them. And I guess from a recurring agreement, what I would say is we've had a 1 year contract, we tried them out, we like them, we're going to go back with them again. But that's a year to year decision. And you can see that Concentra, we've been with them 2 years. Innovative Healthcare, we've been with them for 1 year. The other contract up there that you see is integrity staffing. And we have had several contracts. The relationship goes back several years. But since 2022, we have entered into 1 year agreements for a variety of different reasons. However, an RFP will be issued in the fall of 2022 to see if we will stay with them. We've had some experience where they're not able to fill certain positions, and they don't have an exclusive arrangement with us to only go with integrity. We kind of place our services where the need is, but we're going to test the market and see if there's someone or a vendor who can provide these services, more comprehensive services. Finance traditionally is not able to get people that they need from integrity for our higher level positions. There are some challenges with public works around our skilled workers, particularly during COVID. Several temp agencies would not provide us with sanitation workers and things of that nature due to the high risk associated with it. So we're going to go out and test the market, and we'll have hopefully have a contract before you that will be implemented in July 1 of next year. We very well could stay with integrity. Don't know, but we're going to test the market.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Johnson. Okay, we're going to go to question number 15 under Health and Welfare Fund.
Can I do something? Can I go back to the integrity staffing contract?
Yes, you can.
Because you will see integrity staffing in probably other departments as well. We let the contract for integrity staffing, and user departments use the contract. So you wouldn't see all of the money for integrity budgeted in HR. It is budgeted in the department that utilizes the services.
Okay. HR manages it.
HR, absolutely. We let the contract, we oversee the agreement, but we don't have the money in our budget.
Understood.
Only for the ones that we need to hire.
Okay. No, I get it. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, we're going to move into Health and Welfare. Okay. So number 15, can you please discuss the $23.7 million budgeted for healthcare costs, up 1.7 million over the prior year's budget, and share any preventative measures the city may offer to employees?
Okay. So this is the largest part of Department of Human Resources budget. It is where we budget to meet the needs, the healthcare needs of our city workforce. This budget includes health coverage. It includes prescription coverage, vision coverage, dental coverage, EAP assistance, our flexible spending accounts. All of that is budgeted in this division's budget. And so after several years post-pandemic of remaining flat or lower costs than in the previous year, in this year we are seeing an increase. And that increase has to do with post-COVID. We're starting to see the impact of costs of people now going back, to see their medical providers and things of that nature. So the bulk of this increase has to do with increase in our medical claims, and that number is projected and provided by our broker, and then increases in our prescription costs. So, I think we probably know that prescription costs have risen, whether it's inflation or otherwise, but we are seeing an increase in our prescription costs because many people are doing preventative measures. And because they're doing the preventative measures, many of these prescriptions are cures or address longer term issues that we won't see the catastrophic illnesses that you would see. One of our biggest cost drivers is obesity and diabetes. And so several of our employees, almost a quarter of our workforce, are utilizing some of the prescriptions out there that assist with helping and managing those diseases. And so in that regard, you will see the increased RX costs there. Medical stop loss, that is the stop loss that we pay. We pay for coverage in case we have claims that are in excess of $250,000, and then our stop loss coverage kicks in. And so that is the premium that we pay for that, and that has been the quoted price increase for renewal. There's been rate holds on our medical admin, our dental admin. There was a rate hold on Teladoc, which is our telehealth provider, a rate hold on our life insurance, rate holds on all of those policies. The dental, vision, we're self-insured. Dental, we do have a premium, and that rate is holding flat. Long-term disability, we renewed, and they give us a reduction, so you'll see the reduction there. Our EAP provider, we actually should have budgeted $27.5 last year. The rate holds the same, so we just, took that reduction in this year's budget. And the Affordable Care Act fees, those come from the federal government, and the projected fee for this year will be $7,300. $8,100, I'm sorry, an $800 increase. So overall, it's a $1.8 million increase. The bulk of it, $1.3 million, is medical. The other $500,000 is prescriptions, and that in large has to do with inflation and the trend that we are seeing of utilization going back to pre-COVID levels.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. We're going to move right on to question number 16. Can you?
I think 15A, okay.
Oh.
So 15A is asking us to share any preventative measures that we have in place to help employees, and there are several. Our flagship event, which is our Fall Fest, it sounds like it's a lot of fun, and it is a lot of fun, but woven within that activity and that event is healthcare information, healthcare screenings that employees are able to engage with at our flagship event. We also have our We Go Hard for Health, which is where our employees, when they take healthy actions, when we have our Fall Fest and when we have our open enrollment, They are able to visit, do preventative screenings, visit some of our vendors, and because they took that healthy action, they get points in our in-house app. And then that in-house app, we give incentives and gifts and games and prizes for those who have taken healthy actions. We also have a strong relationship with the Y. We entered in partnership with the Y probably about 5 years ago now, and we did a diabetes prevention program with the Y that we partnered with them, and we were one of the organizations that was included in the CDC validating that as a diabetes prevention program. We are now in our 6th cohort. One of the things that is strong, and we are one of the only employers that does it, we have an on-site program here where the Y comes here, and then in addition, we offer the employees to go on their lunch hour, but we don't take their lunch hour from them. So if you're going to take some healthy action to help assist us with our healthcare costs, we think that's the least we can do. We also have what is our lifestyle lean program through the Y, which is Life Essentials for Activity and Nutrition. That's also a program with the Y where employees engage and with the Y and learn nutrition, and there's a activity component as well. We've done a number of different things, to promote health and wellness. We have virtual therapies. That's our SCORE, SHARP. These acronyms, I don't have them on the tip of my tongue, but there's a program where it's the SWORD program, where we have virtual therapies where they will send you the information and the tools in your home, and you can do virtually your therapies as opposed to needing to schedule and take time off and go to the therapies. We offer those programs as well. We have a physician engagement program, and we launched that probably close to 8 years ago. When I first became the director, there was an alarming statistic that despite how robust our health care benefits are, individuals were not going to see their medical providers. They were not getting their annual physicals. So as a leader, we were the first public employer to offer incentivized physician engagement. And what we did was we gave you tiered pricing for your healthcare premium. If you engage with your physician, you will receive a 2% discount on your healthcare premium. Well, when we first started, that utilization, people going to see their primary care physician for their annual physical was down at around 15%. Our utilization for physician engagement now nears 60%. That helps us drive our costs down because people learn about conditions earlier and can treat earlier so that we're not getting them when they're in advanced stages of their various diseases. So we have a variety of preventative measures that we offer our employees to help with their healthcare needs.
Okay. Did you want to say anything about the next slide?
We can go to the next. That was the Fall Fest, the Y, and the We Go Hard for Health.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Let's see. Let me just make sure we're on the same. That's the.
Okay, I talked a little bit about our initiatives, and then the next slide, please.
Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead.
Oh, 16, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's 16, and you're asking about our professional fees.
Yeah.
And our professional fees, we have a benefits website, we have a broker for benefits, we have our vendor for physician engagement, and we have our FlexFax. We have, none of them are DBEs. We have a agreement with our broker, and Omega Benefits does our website. That's a 1 year. So we have 1 year agreements with these individuals. WellWorks, we've had around for about 7 years now, but they're the only vendor that does that physician engagement program that we have.
Okay.
So, okay.
Okay. I want to recognize Councilmember Owens. Okay, so that's question number 16. It looks like we are wrapping up. Let's see, what is behind that?
Oh, next slide. I think
Yeah.
we took care of everything on that slide.
Okay, behind it because I'm looking at this
So you
here.
asked us about DBEs as it related to our healthcare, and while we forge partnerships with small businesses and DBEs when we do our flagship event, Fall Fest, when we do our open enrollment, and when we have health initiatives, we make it a priority to try to engage with DBEs. Since we don't have many DBEs on our healthcare side, we absolutely make sure that when we have activities and events that we engage with DBEs, and you see some of them listed there.
Great. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we covered all your slides. Okay, and then our wrap-up is going to be on question number 17 regarding your,
I guess we didn't, this was, I'm sorry, I forgot about this slide. This talks about being recognized for the innovative and award-winning work that the department does. And so each year, probably for the past 3 or 4 years, we've received some award for the work that we do in terms of advancing wellness for our employees and retirees. We received the Lieutenant Governor's Wellness Leadership Award for diabetes prevention. We were rated the fifth place for the healthiest employer in the greater Philadelphia area. And then we presented our work for diabetes prevention at Senator Carper's Lifetime Achievement Award.
okay.
And I think the next slide, Madam Chair, is just our
Your organization.
organization chart.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you can go ahead and share anything you want to say about that in
I'll
terms
go to the next slide. And you'll see the division is broken up. I want to make sure you knew we had our pictures. I want to make sure you knew we had our pictures. Yes, Councilwoman Oliver, we have our pictures.
Okay.
So this is Director West and myself, and this is the administrative division. So if you advance to the next slide, you'll see the leaders of each of our divisions. Comfort West oversees our employment services division. That's kind of the engine that drives the department. All divisions are very important, but the work of talent acquisition, employee engagement, a lot of that work is learning and development, performance management. It all takes place in that division. Comfort Dixon runs that division. Next slide, please. We have Taylor West. Although she is a deputy and she assists with the strategic direction of the department, she does manage the compliance division. I affectionately call that division alphabet soup because it's ADA, FMLA, EEOC. If it has a letter, Taylor manages it. Next slide, please.
Okay.
We have Steve Dexter. You heard a lot about our classification and compensation and our reclassification and FLSA. Steve manages all that work, and he makes sure you get paid on time every 2 weeks. Next slide, please. Jim Robb is our risk manager, and he handles all of our insurances and lines of coverage. Next slide, please. And then we have Bruno Battaglia. Bruno Battaglia is the Occupational Health and Safety Program Manager. He oversees the medical dispensary, which includes nurse, a medical clerk, a medical records individual, and a risk management analyst. Workers' comp, return to work, pre-employment physicals, fitness for duty exams all take place in our health and safety division. Next slide, please. And then we currently have a vacancy in our benefits division. You just heard me talk about all the wonderful things that we do in our benefits division. We are, I think the posting came down, we are actively recruiting for a director of employee benefits. Janesta Ray is the acting director at this point. And she's enjoying a well-deserved vacation. Next slide, please. And that's just the work that goes on in each of the various divisions. And Madam Chair, I think that concludes our presentation.
It does. Well, thank you very much. I was informed, well, first of all, thank you for that very comprehensive overview, you and Deputy Director Taylor. Thank you very much because it was a lot, and it's very good to be able to go through each question and making sure that the public, because this is really primarily for the public, to make sure that the public knows the questions that are being asked and the answers to each one of those questions. So I'm glad we were able to make sure that we covered everything in every chart. I was also informed that we were having technical issues with Zoom regarding the mics and WITN was working on that. I'm just saying that for the public. And then I was just recently made aware that the sound is back on. So if there's anyone in the public that was on Zoom, just wanted to make sure that you received that update. So at this time, we're going to put it out to the council members. Councilmember Hackett, Councilmember Oliver.
I'm okay if Councilwoman Oliver go first.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question regarding, council members received not one call, a whole lot of calls regarding the AAs. I think you kind of mentioned it indirectly in the presentation. But my question is, for Director Barnes, if an individual was an administrative 2 or administrative 3, based on this compensation, this is just, I'm asking a question, but my opinion, I wonder why, I thought the compensation was primarily around looking at individuals' funding, making sure we were receiving funds like other municipalities, and to hear that some of individuals, maybe not all A's, but their classification was changed just to administrative assistant. I didn't think that was fair if that's the case, because if they go to other jobs and they were administrative 3 or 4, whatever it may be, and based on this compensation study, and none of them, I don't know about the funding, I haven't heard about that, but why would a person who's been here for years as administrative just say 2 or 3? Why would they be, based on this study, why would they be downgraded to administrative, period, just 1?
So there wasn't a downgrade of any position, and there was not a reduction in salary of any position. The vast majority of our administrative assistants, and so for clarification, these administrative assistants are the appointed administrative assistants that work for each of the department heads.
Correct.
These individuals, there was one individual, 1 or 2 that may have been an administrative assistant 1, and the others were administrative assistant 2s. We made all of them administrative assistant 2s, and then since there is no 1, there was no need to have a 2. So I have a job title that says 1 and a job title that says 2. I upgraded everyone that was in 1 to be a 2. So I have no more 1s. And the decision was made that we don't need to have a 2 as a suffix to that because we have no 1 that we need to distinguish it from. But I want to be very clear that nobody received the downgrade, nobody received the loss in pay.
May I follow up?
Yes.
Okay. As I stated, and I'm going to go to my next question. I didn't hear anyone. We didn't hear of anyone stating they received any funding removed, but we did hear that they were disappointed that something went on with their title, and it was not from a 1 to a 2 or 2 to. It was several people. We received calls, emails. So I'm going to talk to you about that offline.
Okay.
But I'd like to follow up, Madam President. So, listening to your presentation, and I've been looking through the book, and it is disheartening to hear of maybe about 14 DBEs, and I see that we in the city of Wilmington may use maybe 2 or 3 of them, and hopefully. This is not a question for you, this is a statement. Hopefully, because you said a lot of them were 1-year contracts, hopefully with this new administration, they will take a look at that, because I know it has to be more DEBs out there besides just using them for the medical fall fest, just looking at the presentation. And that was just a statement.
No.
I just made a statement, and I'm just gonna.
Go ahead.
The last question was, where does individuals, constituents, being there was a lot of potholes, are they allowed to call, do they call the city to, does risk management deal with flat tires? That's my question.
No.
Do you know who deals with them in the city at all?
I do not believe anyone does because we are, the word is on the tip of my tongue. We have immunity. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. We have immunity and we don't pay for that. No.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Hackett and then Councilmember Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Barnes, thank you so much for the presentation. It was well sought out. I appreciate your staff and everybody for coming. I have two statements and one question. My first statement is, I think we talked about in the proposal that you guys marketing will increase, I guess, for the recruitment. And I just hope that that is aligned with our universities. We got a lot of universities that's laid out in our state, and our job is to try to figure out how, when they graduate, they stay here in the state of Delaware, mainly for me right now, the city of Wilmington. And then also, I talked to Ms. Dixon several times. I think every department should have 2 interns every summer to try to figure out how we can continue to keep them on board. You also talked about residency, and I guess you guys just added on the $50,000 for relocation. I try to figure out when people are applying, knowing that they don't live in the state, but they still apply and they go through, and it says that you have to live in the city of Wilmington. I kind of look at that like when they get all the way to the hiring part and then they possibly get hired and they say, well, hey, is there any relocation? Is that considered something that's regarding residency in some aspect? Because they kind of already figured out they wanted to move, but they just figured out that they wasn't getting any relocation fee or any amount to move here to be able to work here. Because it sounds like if somebody goes through the process, they wouldn't mind living in the city of Wilmington. And then my question is, we talked about integrity staff, and I think I asked about integrity staff and temporary salaries and every possible budget hearing that we have, just to figure out how this looks. And you know, you even filled in earlier how they possibly can't get the higher, you know, roles to be able to fill them. But just to look in the general fund, we got them budget for 1.4 million. In the water sewer, we got them budget for almost 780K. Is there any efforts to be done to make sure that they're not just the only ones that's performing this service here for our city?
I would say the answer is yes, because as I indicated in my comments, that's about $2.1 million.
Yeah.
All that does not go to integrity. So when they don't have a sole, we don't have a sole provider agreement in their contract. So when they cannot fill a role, Public Works has used someone besides them. HR has used someone besides them. Finance routinely uses someone besides them. So they don't have the exclusive right to temporary services in the city. They just have the ability to be the one that we will call if we need administrative support, things of that nature.
Got you. Did I get a follow-up, Madam
Yes,
Chair?
yes.
My follow-up is, too, I'm trying to wonder also when we use integrity staff, and it's a lot of people in my community that works for them. They come here and they work, and some say that, you know, they have a problem with the hiring process when they've been doing a job for almost 1 or 2 years, and then it's time for them to, you know, come on board. And then they got to go through the hiring process, and then maybe their interview skills are not up to the par of somebody that's the interviewee at this point because it's up to that person. But this person's been doing that job in that department pretty well, you know, I would say. And my thought process is there anything, I know you said that you guys are updating you guys' hiring process, but what does that look like for somebody that's coming from a temp agency and moving to the city?
So the city code requires that we post every position. And because we have to post every position, a position can't be earmarked that says, okay, you've temped here and you've worked in this role, you've done a great job, let me just give you this position. The city code prevents that. So when someone applies, it is a merit-based process where we look at the applicant pool, HR screens for the required knowledge, skills, and abilities, and our role is to make sure that we get the best candidate for the department, who is the hiring manager. And I can't speak very specifically on a specific matter, but we do, it would help an individual if they have worked here, they have knows the process, knows the lay of the land, but it may not mean that they are the most qualified candidate. Some of the things very recently that the deputy director and I have been talking about is perhaps in this in the work that we are going to be doing, we offer interviewing skills for, tips for individuals that are in the workforce to not only help our current workforce who often has that same concern. We have a policy that has a preference for internal candidates. But sometimes our internal candidates who've been here aren't successful all the time because there are external candidates that may be a stronger applicant. So what can we do to upskill and shore up our employees to make sure that they're able to progress in their careers? And that may include offering interview tips.
Thank you so much for that question. And I only ask that question is because, we look at people in our city, and probably one of the most beautiful things you could do is work for your city. When I got on city council, I was so happy to finally be able to work for my city. I did summer youth, but I think it's a different feeling to work for your city and be able to, do the work you with a temp agency. But I know that transition is different, so I keep fighting for those people every day. So thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
If I could just add to what Director Barnes said, and so yes, our strategy will proactively provide opportunities for people to be prepared for city employment, but we do currently, under the Division of Employment Services, provide that level of support and feedback. And so if an employee, whether they're a temporary employee or just a full-time employee, if they apply for a promotional opportunity and weren't successful, the HR professional that led that process is available and does provide feedback around what they could do differently, how they could, adjust their resume, answer questions, and be prepared for opportunities when they come. And then that also is a focus of the work that we're doing around learning and development. And so really prioritizing professional development, upskilling, and making sure that our current employees are prepared not just to do their role, but to be promoted and do other roles as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Owens.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. Very similar to what Councilman Hackett mentioned about the $50,000 in the relocation fund. Y'all stated that none of those funds have been used yet because it hasn't passed in a budget. Have we not been using that fund so far? And if so, why is that?
There is no fund in the current fiscal budget. The Housing Assistance Fund was adopted, but it was adopted mid-year, and there was no budget amendment to add funds to the budget for that. So this is the first budget that such funds will be included in.
So my follow-up is, from my understanding, that ordinance passed in 23, which means we would have had fiscal operating budget 24, well, maybe 25 after, at least 25. That it should have been in it because that's the code in there when the residency requirements was updated. And then I've also heard in the paper and on the billboards that there's no residency requirement for police officers, even though reading this document here, it states that FO1 or FOP Lodge 1 rank and file officers, their contract did not start until, the contract that they're currently on did not start until a year after the city law was already updated. So wouldn't that collective bargaining agreement be in violation of city code?
It would not. And that was the decision of the Public Employers Relations Board. Having a residency requirement is a term and condition of employment. When it was imposed by the state had the authority and we had to follow the state law. However, it is a term and condition of employment. At the city level, it is not. We have to negotiate that. And so the PERB decision ruled that unless and until we affirmatively negotiate a residency requirement into each of the collective bargaining agreements, there is no residency requirement for any of the unionized employees. That was the PERB decision that came down. And so, no, none of the contracts are in violation. And more notably, we have engaged in a memorandum of understanding with the police department that documents exactly what PERB said. Until we affirmatively negotiate into their contract a residency requirement, there is no requirement.
So let me ask you this. The state law hasn't changed. Sorry, follow up, please. The state law hasn't changed on residency, from my understanding, correct? So the residency requirement that was in the former CBAs with the police department, how was that able to stand in the city for so long? Even when they did have the year change, I think they brought it down from 10 years or 12 years to 5 years. That has been a long-standing practice here until 2024.
The residency requirement was not in the CBAs. The
Okay.
residency requirement was imposed at the state level. The charter indicated that if you were in a municipality of 50,000 or greater, which i.e. that means Wilmington, they could impose a residency requirement. So that requirement was in the city charter, at the state level, okay? It's no longer at that level. They gave, the bill that Governor Carney signed allowed the city to determine its own fate as it related to residency. And yes, the city council did pass a residency requirement. What the unions did at that point was appeal to PERB to say, hey, this must be negotiated. The city cannot impose this term and condition of employment on us without negotiating it. The PERB said, you know what, you're absolutely correct. When it was at the state level, they had no choice. At the city level, they must negotiate it because it's not something that is imposed by the state of Delaware. And so now that PERB decision, although you did pass a law at the city level, or a law was passed at the city level, the Public Employee Relations Board under state statute has indicated that unless we negotiate it, it is not a valid requirement.
Thank you, Director Barnes. I need to go to Councilmember McCoy and then to the public because we're over time.
Then after her, I just want to make one statement. I'm done. Any
I,
more?
no,
I said
let
after
me-
you finish.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you. Councilmember McCoy?
Yes. Is the sound okay now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay.
We
Okay,
can hear
good.
you.
All right. So my question, I think this question, great. This question, I believe, is probably the very first question that was actually answered to that. So mine is actually about the retention and recruitment position. So if the recruitment position, which it was previously vacant, and it was vacant in the last administration, is going to be filled in response to the council's request concerning the Wilmington Fire Department, and the proposal is to retain that position within HR. How will you ensure that the concerns raised by council regarding the fire department are effectively addressed and achieve the intended impact?
So I want to do a couple of different things. The Human Resources Administrator position has turned over a couple times. So it's not that the same position has been vacant. So we've hired, and then employees have left, and then we have to rehire. So I didn't want anybody to think that it's just been vacant, and we have not done anything about that. The second way I want to respond to that is each of our human resources administrators, which they are now called human resources business partners. So each of our human resources business partners are assigned a department that they work with. There will be three. When fully staffed, there are three of them, and each of them are assigned to various departments. And so the needs of that specific department are addressed through that HRA. Oversight of that will come through the Director of Employment Services, my apologies. So the strategies around DEI or anything else will go from the HRA to the Director of Employment Services, but at the highest level, the strategy will be set by the Deputy Director and the Director, and informed by the data that we receive when we do the assessment.
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes, if I may follow.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. The name of the position again? Would you just clarify that again?
It was formerly called a Human Resources Administrator. The title was changed to Human
Okay.
Resources Business Partner.
Okay. All right. And there was more than one position that was actually that has been filled off and on, I guess, within the past few years. How many positions are available?
There are 3 positions in that division, and actually, all 3 were vacant at one point. One of the individuals that we've referenced, who is now the new Director of Employment Services, she was a Human Resources Administrator. She was promoted. We have to fill that position. There was another employee that left. We have to fill that position. So there was at one point all 3 of them have been vacant at one point or another, and we have not been fully staffed with human resources administrators probably for more than a year. As soon as we get one and that position turns over.
Thank you,
Okay.
Director Barnes. I want Councilmember McCoy. I just need to go to the public right now. If you have another question, I'll come back to you. We are over, but
Okay,
I think
that's
it's
good.
important that people's questions get answered. So, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak at this time that's in the chambers? Seeing none, is there any on Zoom? Any council members on Zoom? Okay, all right. Councilmember Owens, Councilmember Oliver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one other question about question 13 that you presented on. It was stated that the auditor came back and said that we cannot put that $150,000 into reserve funds. Have we already been doing that for multiple years? And if so, are we reallocating the money that was already set in the reserve funds towards something else?
No, we were budgeting it each year, and then each year we learned that it was not, the external auditor was saying, nope, you can't do it. So now we just stopped budgeting it.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Oliver.
Yes, I wanted to go back to question 7 regarding the budget, the 50K for the residency relocation assistance. I understand the money was placed in the budget 7/1/25. But I just asked a question. So I didn't realize the task force just completed everything in November 24. But I guess my statement is, when we were talking about this in 2022, whenever it was, 23, I'm just surprised that Director Barnes, y'all haven't, I thought it was supposed to be the 5 or 10. I remember on the floor was talking about maybe 5 or 10 for as relocation assistance, and now we're talking about a radius. I never recall of hearing about a radius because that was the big thing, to give them something to relocate, and now you're talking about a certain radius. I just think I keep hearing about, you're constantly mentioning about residency and the people not coming in, but now you're putting a radius on it. What would be the purpose of the radius if you're trying to attract some employees to come in the city?
The radius was mentioned in response to how we would determine how much money to give someone who was relocating. And that was the recommendation of the task force that was appointed by the council. And so when we looked at that and all that, the community and everyone came out, and those members on that task force, there was a concern amongst the task force that, well, wait a second, somebody could live outside the city and be a mile outside the city. Why would you give them the same money you would give somebody that maybe has to relocate from, I don't know, out of state or whatever? So that's why there was that came into play. I will say that the HR department has responsibility for promulgating the rules of the fund. And what we said was that would inform the rules and regulations that we made. It didn't say that was going to be the rules and regulations that we made.
That's all. Thank you for clarity.
Thank you. Councilmember Hackett.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you so much. I have another question around integrity staffing, and this is just when somebody is in a temp position, is that considered a vacant position, or they're no longer a vacant position? Like when somebody's serving as a temp, like, and I'm guessing, do they have like several different time frames too? Like, is it like they're hiring a temp for 6 months, a year, 2 years, or like how does that work?
It depends. The law, the ordinance on the city books, we cannot employ someone in a full-time position for more than 6 months without them going to a temporary agency and being an employee of the temporary agency. So if you are a city temp, so you'll hear the vernacular city temp versus integrity or whomever, whatever temp. So there is an ordinance in city code that prohibits individuals from being employed and working alongside someone day by day doing the same work. And one being a temp and one being full-time. However, you can work for a temporary agency because you're an employee of the agency, not an employee of the city. So it's not designed, temp employees are not designed to be full-time employees, but there are times when you may need them at different, for longer durations, whether it's a project that's going on, whether it's to meet the peak demand of something that's going on. I know we had a vacancy in one of my divisions, and we had a integrity temp for longer than we normally would have an integrity temp, because we only use them to fill in for peak periods. But when we had a vacancy, we needed it for longer. So it just depends upon the needs of the actual department.
Thank you. And
Thank
follow
you.
up. This is one. This is quick.
Okay, go ahead.
The follow up is in regards to, so like when they are doing a temp period time, is that job considered vacancy on the list?
So temporary employees typically do not fill in for a vacant position, particularly if it's a union position, because clauses in the union contract prevent us from hiring a temp for long periods of time. If you're going to hire them, you just need to fill the position. So typically a temporary employee, that position would still show on the vacancy report as a vacant position, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember McCoy, if it's budgetary, go ahead.
Yes, yes, it is budgetary. So the question was about the what is that? The residency funds, I guess the residency relocation fund. So the task force actually was formed a while back, and I know that Ms. Director Barnes and I believe our former chief of staff was actually part of it. I would like to know whether or not the task force actually was meeting, and how frequently did they meet, that we're just getting the 50,000 added, that there was never a recommendation for an amendment to the budget.
So the task force met, and the original report of the task force was supposed to be before council, if I'm not mistaken, in the September, October timeframe. And then council extended the timeline to receive the task force report. And the task force report, if I'm not mistaken, I can look at the ordinance or resolution and tell you when council adopted the recommendations of the task force report. The Residency Assistance Fund, there was a conversation around that, and during this time last year for the budget. And one of the questions was about money that we were going to use to assist individuals with housing and relocation for the city. And at that time, the then chief of staff mentioned that real estate and housing had increased the funds that they had budgeted for live where you work and things of that nature. And there was no funds. The decision was made that there was no funds included in the fiscal 25 budget for the Housing Relocation Assistance Fund because of what was in real estate and housing. However, this year, based on the recommendations of the Housing Task Force, the Residency Task Force, and I want to say that task force report was probably in the November timeframe, and council staff is nodding their head. That came forth in the November timeframe, was when the reports of that task force was adopted. That's when the recommendations very specifically around relocation assistance was put into the task force and the parameters around that.
Okay.
Okay. May I follow? I just had one simple question. Whether or not relocation funds, are they allowed to be used as security deposits, or is it just for home ownership?
We have not finalized what the program will look like. HR will determine the rules, and the HR was authorized to promulgate the rules and the regulations of the fund. We have not determined what those rules and regulations are at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And my quick question is this: so when do you plan on finalizing those guidelines, Director Barnes?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. When do you plan on finalizing those guidelines?
We'll be working to finalize those guidelines. And obviously, the urgency is as it relates to non-union positions because we would not be giving relocation assistance to individuals that aren't required to live into the city. That's where the money from real estate and housing would come from. Live where you work, purchase a home, and I think the amount was changed from 4 to 15,000. I'm fairly confident that that was the change that was made. So two different pots of money
Understood.
for two different purposes. But we will look to do that definitely very soon after the fiscal year begins. We should
Okay.
have those adopted.
All right, and my only question I'm going to ask because of the time is that there was a decrease under workers' compensation, under materials and supplies.
That was the $150,000 that was budgeted for reserves that's no longer going to be budgeted for those reserves.
Okay, all right, well, that's all I have for right now. So, okay, first of all, we want to thank you for your thorough, comprehensive answers. I want to thank the council members for the great questions that they had for you, even the follow-up questions. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you, Director Barnes, also Deputy Director Taylor, your team, and everyone that shared, Director Jones as well on this evening. So at this particular time, I want to share with those in the audience, if you have any follow-up information, any additional questions, I ask that you provide them to Ms. Bassnight. And at this time, once again, thank you, everyone. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and we will return at 6:40 in the chambers. Thank you again, everyone, and have a good night. Good evening, honorable members of council. Chief of Staff Simmons, Deputy Chief of Staff for Mayor Carney, Stephanie Mergler, Department Heads, Office of Management and Budget, Bob Goff, City Solicitor, and members of the public. I'm calling to order the Finance Committee budget hearing for the Law Department as we are just resuming from a 10-minute break. First, I would like to start by recognizing members of the Finance Committee that are in attendance this evening by doing a roll call. Councilmember Darby, Councilmember Oliver, Councilmember Bracy, Councilmember Hackett,
Here.
Councilmember Spadola, President Congo.
Here.
I would also like to recognize any other council members present. Councilmember Owens,
Here.
Councilmember Cabrera, Councilmember Willard,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Field, Councilmember McCoy. Thank you, council members, for joining. I would like to inform everyone that public comments will be made at the end of each department's budget and that we look forward for participation from the public. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. If there is any follow-up information during any of the budget hearings, Ms. Basnight will track and follow up those requests. The budget hearings are limited due to time constraints, and I ask if all can be mindful and respectful of time. All budget questions should be of fiscal budgetary matter only and will be limited based upon time limitations. I ask if my colleagues have any questions, please raise your hand. It is intended for each department to present, then questions are slated afterwards. Before office and management start the budget overview, I would first like to congratulate our city solicitor, Bob Goff, on his retirement with over 30 years of legal experience and has been the city solicitor since 2019.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
That's very kind of you. I've really enjoyed my work here and working with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, and likewise.
And I'm going to miss y'all.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jones, OMB Fiscal and Operational Analyst, to provide a financial overview of the Law Department, then followed by City Solicitor Goff, as well as for a question and answer session with counsel. This hearing is tentatively slated for 90 minutes. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jones.
All right. Good evening again, Madam Chair, Council President, Council Chief of Staff, and honorable members of City Council. This evening, I will present the Law Department's FY2026 proposed budget request on behalf of the Office of Management and Budget. Next slide. Thank you. The Law Department is requesting a total budget of $2.9 million, a decrease of $41,500, down 1.4% compared to the FY 2025 budget. Next slide. Personal services increased slightly by 0.4% or $10,300, mainly due to the cost of living adjustments, anniversary steps, and annual reviews, with the addition of higher employee benefits costs as well. The Law Department also eliminated the vacant Legal 1 position, resulting in a reduction of 1 FTE and a savings of $97,790 to the general fund. The existing staff capacity and operational efficiencies will enable the department to manage the workload without this position. MS&E decreased by $52,800, with legal fees reduced by $30,000 due to lower anticipated costs for outside legal counsel. With the Law Department now fully staffed, the use of temporary agencies has been eliminated. This resulted in a savings of $20,000. There also was a reduction of $2,800 in the furniture, fixture, and equipment account line, reflecting the completion of office equipment upgrades from the prior fiscal year. That concludes my presentation of the Law Department's FY 2026 proposed budget. I return the floor back to the chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. I will turn it over to our city solicitor, Mr. Goff, at this time.
Good evening, Chairperson Harley, President Congo, I think I saw online as well, and all the members of the Finance Committee, as well as other members of council that are in attendance, both in person and online. Tonight's appearance before you is my 7th and will be my last budget, as we learned at my retirement, presentation to City Council's Finance Committee. Helping me today are Deputy City Solicitor Rose Tassani DiNardo and the Law Department's Chief Administrative Supervisor Javette Lane. I wanted to thank them for their assistance tonight and, of course, on the many countless other occasions they've assisted me during my tenure. Some things change and some things stay the same. The Law Department's budget tends to fall in the latter category. So, as fiscal year 2026 approaches, I'm happy to announce that the Law Department will once again maintain its trim budget. Some things have changed, and I will say that it's for the better. In the past, I've often spoken about the challenges of attracting and keeping qualified attorneys, so much so that I must have sounded like a broken record to all of you. But for this past year and a half, I'm happy to say that this challenge has largely been met. I think it is fair to attribute this success to several coalescing factors. 2 years ago, the Law Department experienced a prolonged and substantial attorney vacancy problem. But with the implementation of recommendations from the compensation study and the charter change granting job security to attorneys with more than 3 years of satisfactory service to the city, the past year has seen the department retain all of its legal staff. These recent improvements enabled the Law Department to establish and maintain a stable core of lawyers with the specialized knowledge and experience in local government service practice needed to guide and protect the city. When they see themselves as appropriately valued in their profession by being paid at a competitive market rate, when they are provided security and employment for a job well done, and when they are offered training opportunities that allow professional development in specialties they need to serve the needs of the city, good lawyers stay in their job and the city benefits. This budget serves those aspirations. And with that, I'll rehash, because our departmental vision doesn't really change, that our vision is to have an effective, efficient, and committed group of legal professionals with the passion, time, and experience to deal with the city's most important legal issues, while at the same time ensuring that the day-to-day legal needs of the city are addressed. Our priorities for fiscal 2026 are the same as they've been, and that is to continue to provide effective and efficient legal advice to the city, to defend and prosecute litigation aggressively, to provide legal service in various employment matters, to provide strategic and legal support in the negotiations of our collective bargaining agreements, to deliver necessary and appropriate legal support to City Council, and to meet our budget targets. And our top performance measures are to continue to meet or exceed our stakeholder expectations for effectiveness of legal advice and quality of outcomes, to continue to deliver strategic recommendations for a comprehensive update to city code and charter, and to continue to control outside council expenses.
Okay, so thank you for that overview, sharing your mission and your priorities. And so now we're going to jump into our questions. Okay?
Great.
All right, so starting with question number 1, with the evolving changes regarding federal grant funding, while understanding possible legal challenges, can you please share any potential legal plan of action to best protect the city for being on the chopping block for possible federal funding?
Okay. So from the very outset of the new administration and its changes and orders out of Washington, D.C., this office, the Law Department, has been reviewing and considering all of those executive orders and other actions. And in the course of that, we have been providing advice as necessary to, and updates to all the stakeholders, whether it's in council or with the administration, and we've done that in the confidential setting of a communication, attorney-client. We will continue to do that and continue to provide that advice with a view towards whatever policy decisions that are made by the administration or what other decisions and legislative acts that are being considered by council.
Okay, we're going to move right on to question number 2. Can you please discuss any proposed changes to positions? And you can answer letters A through D.
Okay, so the only change in position is the one that was mentioned in the overview, and that is for the legal assistant one position. We basically determined when the person who is in that left of their own accord because they were moving on to other educational challenges that they were planning, that we really didn't need to fill the position. We had found that over the course of COVID, that when COVID kind of relaxed, we no longer just had that kind of visits. And we also found that we could handle that simply by monitoring the front door through a camera system. We have that camera placed, a cell phone can view it, and it goes to various different employees throughout the day. So it is not really, wasn't necessary. So we thought we didn't need to fill that position.
Okay, so we're going to answer A through D.
Okay, and so that answered A. I think I'm going to turn over to Rose for 2B, the retention question.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, the question, share the retention rate for the attorneys in the office. The law department currently has 9 staff attorneys. And as shown in the slides, if you want to go to the next slide, over the past several years, and as City Solicitor mentioned, the law department experienced an unusually high turnover rate in its attorneys, and some difficulty with hiring. At last year's budget hearing, we presented council with similar information, and that was in connection with our request for the charter change to implement the tenure system for attorneys. And I am pleased to share that for over a year now, we, as the city solicitor has indicated, we have remained fully staffed.
Great. Going down.
2C.
Yes, and D.
The next slide.
So 2C asked whether we, to us to specify if the recent charter change to provide that, with the exception of the city solicitor, all persons appointed to serve as attorneys in the law department shall attain tenure upon 3 years of continuous satisfactory full-time service and may not be removed from their position except for just cause. The Wilmington Charter is also being amended to provide tenure status to attorneys who have already served 3 years of continuous satisfactory full-time service. And so the ask is whether this has benefited the law department as far as recruitment and retention. Please explain and share. So I think that basically we kind of already answered that question to some extent, because the retention rate has, just by demonstration, has been fully retained. We know that in the past, a number of people that have left us left for jobs working, for example, the Attorney General's office, where they have tenure as well after a period of 3 years. They've gone to Newcastle County, which also, for certain of its attorneys, has job security provisions. I think we lost attorney to the federal government, and they have civil service protections for some of their attorneys. And of course, we do lose people to private practice as well. But I can say that that this is a way in which that provision has helped us.
Okay.
I don't know, Rose, is there anything that you wanted to add?
No, actually, most of our attorneys that have left have gone to the public sector and not, surprisingly, not to private practice. There was an attorney who actually went to another municipality outside of this state that also had tenure. And the feedback that we were receiving from the attorneys as they were leaving kind of fueled our determination that job security was one of the issues, in addition to salary and the residency requirement.
Okay. And that's pretty much all that you have to say for D.
2C, yeah, and 2D was specify if any challenges with the hiring process due to the residency requirement. Rose, is there anything that you wanted to add concerning that?
Only that, again, feedback that we've received from attorneys that have applied, and even some that have left, is, with the residency requirement, some individuals had already owned a home outside of the city, and so moving into the city posed some problems in terms of like mortgage rates and things like that. Family situations where schooling was an issue, where they had children, they wanted to keep them in that school, or spouse's employment. Those are the things that the law department was hearing. When we
Our interviews.
during, actually, even before interviews, folks would call us, and we made them aware that there was a residency requirement, and we would get some folks who did not know, because they had a Wilmington address, that they didn't live in the incorporated part of the city, and that was the requirement, and would withdraw their application. So to answer the question, has it been a challenge? It has, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We're going to move right on to question number 3. Can you please share the plan used for $270,000 budgeted in legal fees, and specifically why $30,000 in legal fees was removed pertaining to potential conflicts that may arise pertaining to legal matters that are of a difference of legal opinion between the legislative and executive branches that will necessitate outside legal expertise? And you can answer letters A through E.
Okay. So as the chart shows, the FY25 budget, we've proposed $270,000 in its legal lines. It's broken down into labor negotiations and associated litigation with the labor, real estate transactions, including economic development, and then complex transactions. In the last budget, City Council requested and approved an increase of $30,000 in the line. And this year, what we proposed was basically the same amount that we proposed last year for your consideration. And if you wish to increase the legal line by the $30,000 again, we won't object. However, the line as it is, if there were to be some type of conflict and council, the law department determined that there was a need for council to retain conflict attorney, it would come out of the $270,000.
Okay. Want to say anything about the chart below?
So I explained the chart, so if we wanted to go to the next slide. Specify vendors for FY 2025 agreement expiration date, the amount, the length of the agreement, and any planned, if any planned use for FY 2026. So these are actually, the law department doesn't really have vendors per se, but we have our law firms that we retain. And our outside counsel, Richards Layton, as you can see, since 2020, Young Conaway since 2006. Those are the ones we currently have for 2025. Department, we choose to continue representation with those firms, and basically we look at the quality of the work, competitiveness of their fees, and competition with other firms.
Okay.
The next slide. Specify if any vendors that are DBEs. So again, our quote vendors consist of law firms. To the best of our knowledge, these law firms are not DBEs as our city code defines them. However, the law firms that we do retain have strong diversity and or diversity and inclusion programs for hiring and management within the firms.
So, and what I would add, though, is that a lot of, as I said, as Rose was indicating, they are not really contracts. They're sort of at-will retentions. We generally bring on firms because it's something we can't do as well. And we may not have the resources, we may not have the agility to file, for example, in Chancery Court, which often requires expedited and specialized types of litigation, and would put us at a disadvantage if we were try to do it in-house. So we tend to try to get firms which specialize in that areas that we just can't necessarily do as efficiently or as well. And that makes it necessary for us to hunt out those things. And that's sort of the reason why that we choose the firms that we have.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
And so I think that C is basically what we were saying is we choose these firms because they're competitive. Law firms are expensive. They're even expensive for us, but they do tend to give us specialized rates because I think it's a good community service to do that. And as a result, we look for that. We look for their areas of expertise, the competitiveness of their rates, and their capacity, as I've already indicated, to litigate complex cases. And as Rose indicated, we are very aware of and have researched that they do, in fact, promote diversity in hiring and in their management. They have active programs that do so.
Great. D?
And 3D, specify if there's a carve-out of the $270,000 in legal fees for counsel due to any conflicts that are negated by the charter. As I mentioned, if the law department determines that it has a conflict of interest between its representation of the administration and city council, then those legal fees that are associated with conflict counsel would come out of the $270,000.
And as we've indicated also, we're open, if council thinks that we need to have $30,000 more for that possibility, although I don't think it happened this last year, we didn't use it, we're certainly open to that.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
3E, please provide a chart of legal expertise area for in-house attorneys comparable with the use of outside attorneys. And so you'll see those are the general practice areas that we have in our office. Litigation, we handle both in-house and to outside counsel. If it's a case that is complex, that requires a tremendous amount of resources, that usually will go to outside counsel. Labor and employment, we handle both in-house and outside counsel. Our labor negotiations are done by an outside law firm, although we have our own attorney there. Complex transactions are generally handled by outside counsel. Real estate transactions, both. Debt collection, both in-house and outside. Legislation is handled in-house. Our code enforcement, whether it's L&I, parking, red light, that's all handled in-house. And environmental, handled in-house and outside counsel. If it's something that, again, is of a complex nature, requiring a lot of resources, that generally goes out to outside counsel, because we don't technically have an environmental attorney, although Bob has
Well, as a generalist, I do my best sometimes. But there have been times in the past in our history before I was here that we did have an environmental counsel, but we just haven't brought those or been able to track those at this stage.
Okay. All right. We're going to move right on to question number 4. Understanding the law department is the official legal representation of the city, can you share any mitigating fiscal budgetary factors in place that best represent and protect the city from any litany of claims lawsuits and things of that nature. And you can answer questions A and B.
Okay, so this is a question that we've been presented with, I think, consistently from year to year. Our answer is the same as it always is, in that we believe that the mitigating fiscal budgetary factors in place that protect the city are the hiring and retaining of qualified and hardworking attorneys to work in suitable cases and tasks, engaging outside counsel at discounted and competitive rates to handle matters more efficiently and more effectively when that is appropriate, budgeting funds for professional development and training to enhance the law department's effectiveness in protecting the city from legal claims. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Oh, yes, it's up there, okay. I don't know if you want to read that.
This is B?
Oh,
I mean, yeah, B for 4B.
So, next slide, then 4B?
No.
Or we,
Oh, did I miss this? I apologize. 4A, specify if adequate funding budget best protects the city regarding any exposure and liability for various claims. And our answer is yes. We believe that in the current fiscal environment, we have budgeted adequately to fund the law department's task of protecting the city from liability.
And then B.
and 4B, citywide, there's approximately $1.98 million budgeted across all funds for legal services. Please share your department's role, if any, with oversight. So with regard to risk management, the law department provides a recommendation to HR regarding estimated outside counsel fees for the various cases that we have. And that proposed budget includes estimates for employment claims, constitutional and statutory claims, personal injury claims. The remaining lines are delegated to the individual departments under the law department's oversight. And basically what that means is we assist in selecting and approving outside counsel. When it comes to the litigation matters, we receive, review, and approve invoices from the firms. We engage with the department to assess the effectiveness of the law firms that are retained, and we draft and review the contracts to retain certain firms.
Okay, thank you. And I see your chart here with all the information for all the different departments. Did you want to say anything about that? The chart before that?
The
Page before or after? This page, if you go back one. Get back. Or before, you can go forward then. It's right under 4, so 4A and B, we had our questions, and then there was a chart.
I don't think that got to us.
You didn't, okay.
no.
All right, that's fine. We'll move right on to question. I'll just, for the record, I guess, the chart just basically shares. If you wanted, thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
So, yes, the Public Works line, that is, that in their legal line, they determine, based on their usage, what their legal fees are, and then we assist them with selecting outside counsel. Generally, it's litigation related, so we would also be reviewing their fees. Finance is their collections. We've participated in reviewing the contracts for their outside counsel. HR is the risk management line, which we provide the estimates for, and we also review the bills associated with those matters because they are all litigation related, and of course the law department.
Yeah, so this was just the breakdown of the 1.98 million, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think it's so bad.
All right, okay. We're going to move right on to question number 5. Can you please discuss the planned use budgeted for $75,000 in the court costs and notary fees account grouping, considering costs have not exceeded $50,000 in the last 3 years and costs are trending well below budget in this current fiscal year?
So this line is for our research, court filings, munitions, things like that related to sheriff sales. 75,000 is a conservative estimate of the cost. One thing in terms of it appearing to trend lower. This is a line where when properties go to sheriff sale and we're able to recoup costs, those costs go back into the line. And so you'll see that the line does trend a little lower. However, there is no guarantee that we're able to recoup all the costs that we expend. For example, a sale that stopped after the munition has been filed because of either payment or a payment plan, we wouldn't recoup those costs. Or if the property is sold for far less than the debt that's owed, we wouldn't necessarily recoup the cost.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on to question number 6. Now that the office equipment upgrades have been completed and also there is ongoing continued training for all staff, can you please share any operational efficiencies?
So the only office equipment upgrade is we got our brand new door. So our door finally matches what City Council and the mayor's has. It's not that big metal monstrosity that was there forever. That was impossible to open. I'm happy to say that that door's done, although it still needs a buzzer. So we're waiting on that. And of course, that will help us to be able to remotely buzz people in. It improves security. I think it makes it a more welcoming space. Our training is the training that all lawyers have to do as part of their continuing legal education, and we're happy that we're able to provide assistance and direction for our attorneys to do that so that they can provide assistance to the city, and that is the operational efficiency that we receive because of that.
Okay, very good. That brings us to our last question. Question number 7 regarding your FY 2026 proposed organizational chart with the total number of employees. So you want to speak to this?
I'll just say there's one less employee than last time, which is the one position that we lost. There's one more picture than last time. That's me. And next time, whoever's here next time, hopefully they'll put Rose's picture up there, and they'll be more thoughtful about that. So, anyway, and Javette's, excuse me.
Okay.
Well. So that's the only comment I have. Our organization's the same as it's been a long time.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for the overview and answering the questions. So at this time, I'm going to put it out to the council members. And Councilmember Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say to the Law Department, thank you so much for coming. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
And thank you for the thoughtful and well thought out presentation.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any members on Zoom? Any council members on Zoom have any questions?
This is Councilmember Bracy.
Hi.
Hi, Matt, may I speak?
Yes.
Madam Chair? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say, I wanted to echo Councilman Hackett and say congratulations on your retirement. You're going to be missed here in the city offices, but well-deserved retirement.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'll miss you as well and everyone else. It's a bunch of really good people that I've had the pleasure of working with, people that I see here today, and the great team of lawyers that I don't know if you could tell in my presentation that I'm so proud to have been able to assemble almost all of them, except for the ones that have been here. I was lucky enough to find already here, and they're the ones that have kind of kept me out of trouble all these years. So.
Well, we're certainly going to miss your professionalism and all the different areas where you presided, the zoning board, and how you kept everything pretty much together there. So
Most
you
of the time.
Right, exactly. Councilmember Hackett.
Yeah, I do have a question. the thought, you talked about the 270,000 that I guess is budgeted for outside counsel, and didn't use any of it last. I guess I just want to make sure I'm clear on that one.
Well, we didn't use the 30,000 that was budgeted last year because there was no specific conflict that took place that we needed to go into that amount. But we have used our our outside counsel fees. I don't think we've used it all.
No,
So we're running
we
a little
haven't.
bit less than in previous years for that.
So we use it, the amounts that we have used were for a complex transactional matter and for union negotiations. Those are the two buckets that we've used our line for. Most of the outside legal fees would come from risk management, from the risk management line. That's where you have your personal injury and your constitutional claims that are filed against the city.
And I guess just a follow-up, please.
Sure.
In regards to you guys, maybe not even a budget question, but do y'all use any of the, what I would say, some of your allotted funds in, I guess, participating in some of Delaware law, bar, we got a lot of, I guess they say we have the best, law practice here in Delaware. So I just wonder, how's your pipeline of getting more law students here in the city of Wilmington to workforce?
So I will say, and Bob has gone to
University.
to the Delaware Law School. I'm still used to saying the Widener. That's where I went.
Well, I went to Delaware Law School. That's how long ago I went, because it changed to Widener and then became Delaware Law School again.
And now it's back.
Wow.
So every year they do a diversity job fair, and the city participates in that. And Bob has gone the past 2 or 3 years.
I have.
It's
been actually a great experience.
Yeah, I've gone before, and it's a way for us to get the word out on what we do here at the city and at the law department. And so when a position does become available, that may be somebody who that we met with would apply.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Are there any members from the public that would like to speak at this time? Okay. Ms. Bassnight?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just be remiss if I didn't say anything to Mr. Goff, because we work very closely together since 2019. So I just want to just to let you know, it's been a pleasure working with you. Learned a lot through your lens as a city solicitor. So I just want to state that for record, because we work very closely together.
We've had a lot of good talks.
Yes.
I have to say.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments from any other council members? Any final comments from the council? Well, I would just like to say I'll see you hopefully on Saturday at the Progressive Dinner. Is it this Saturday?
I'll be there.
You'll be there. Okay. All right.
Midtown Brainwind's Progressive Dinner. Yes.
Yes, it's one of the best. One of the best. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank, let me get back to this. I want to thank our O&B director, Mr. Greco, and team, our department heads, our city solicitor, Mr. Bob Goff, who's going to be retiring, your team, and everyone that presented on tonight. And I want to make sure that I mention to the public and to the council members, if you have any follow-up information, I ask that you please provide it to Ms. Bassnight. Also, I would like to, again, thank Mr. Greco, department heads, our WITN team, our council staff, and members of the public. And lastly, I would like to thank Ms. English for assisting this evening, and to mention that our next budget hearings are scheduled for Wednesday, April the 30th at 4:30 p.m., which is the last day for all the departmental budget hearings. Those two budget hearings are going to be Public Works Department, Water Sewer Fund for the mayor's office, and a presentation for the Water Sewer Fund for the 6-year financial plan. And I also want to announce that we are asking you in the public to please tune in to WITN Channel 22 to watch the meeting. And you can also watch online at www.witn22.org. Also, budget information is available at www.wilmdebudget.org. That is WILMDEBUDGET.org. And at this time, I would like to accept a motion to adjourn. So moved.
So,
I didn't even get to
second.
the motion.
Thank you.
You already did.
Thank you.
Okay.
So again, thanks everyone for joining and have a good night. Thank you.